If you could take a moment and go to thegrowingbanddirector.com to give at least $5 or $3 a month, and it helps the content continue to be created for you to help our profession grow. Let's go back to our scheduled episode. Excelsior Music Publishing is proud to sponsor the Growing Band Director podcast. With spring concert season on the horizon, Excelsior Music Publishing is proud to offer a vast catalog of inspiring concert band and jazz ensemble pieces that will be right at home on your spring programs. You'll find works by imaginative composers for all levels. Find music for your graduation and spring concerts at excelsiormusic.com. That's EXCELCIA music.com. Teachers, do you spend valuable time all year correcting your students' hand position instead of focusing on the music? Thumb Gummy solves that. These simple, cost-effective teaching aids fit on trumpets and trombones to guide the right hand into proper playing position, reducing tension, improving form, and giving tactile feedback so students can focus on playing, not adjusting. It's easy to use, comfortable, and designed by teachers and players for beginners as well as older students. Join thousands already seeing the difference, and keep an eye out for our new clarinet thumb rest coming soon. Visit thumbgummy.com to learn more. That's thumbgummy.com. Tuner Caddy is proud to sponsor the Growing Band Director podcast. The Tuner Caddy was created by Mark Casperson, a band director with over 38 years of experience. Like most of us, he was tired of dropped tuners, wasted time, and students fumbling with their gear. So he did what any passionate teacher would do. He invented a solution. Mark designed the original Tuner Caddy after testing 57 different versions. The classic model fits right onto most music stands, holds any tuner, and even has a pencil holder. Then he added the Student Pro, a slimmer, binder-friendly with magnets, so it sticks right to the wire stands. And now there's even the TCT-60M, a full tuner and metronome combo that's transposable and includes a 6-foot mic. Super practical and more affordable than most other options out there. The best part is that these tools don't just help kids stay organized, they actually improve how we teach intonation and tone. Tuner Caddy is being used by some of the top programs in the country, from Texas to Virginia, and it's even been on stage at the Midwest Clinic and Music for All Festival. You can find Tuner Caddy at tunercaddy.com, at local retailers, or through Music and Arts, Sweetwater, and Premier Music Teaching Aids. They even offer support for educators writing grants. Check them out at tunercaddy.com. Welcome back to the Growing Band Director podcast. This is episode number 247. I'm honored to be here with Key Poulan. Key, how are you?
Doing fine. How are you?
Beautiful. Thanks for being here. We're trying to get this out in April, where a lot of people are still kind of in the middle of planning their marching band shows for next fall. I know for a lot of people that maybe are past it a little bit, but hoping to pick your brain today about, a lot of things around marching band show design for people. Before we start, for people who maybe don't know much about you, could you give us a brief history of you as a designer and your education?
Brief history. Okay. Well, started band in the 5th grade.
Okay. Fast forward that.
No, the interesting part about that is, in my 9th grade year, I actually was in a military style marching band in East Texas, and then my parents moved, so moved to Marshall, Texas, and Dr. Jerry Payne ended up being there, and he was the one who introduced corps style to me. So we were actually in this hotbed of military, and this one little band was doing corps style. So that was pretty amazing that we were just a little different. And then went to East Texas State University in Commerce. Jim Keene was the director there, and he, in the 70s, he always pulled in people like Wayne Downey, Ralph Hardiman, Fred Sanford. Imagine this in the middle of military band East Texas. All of these amazing drum corps people would come out every summer and do these big clinics in the 70s. So it was that early, and that's where I really fell in love with drum corps. Ended up that they were a corps style marching band there as well, and I was hooked instantly at that point. And we had a few clinicians would come out. A couple of color guard people came out. I said, "Yeah, I'm about to age out, and I don't really want to go to the Skyriders, which is where a lot of people went. I mean, they're a great drum corps, but it was just not really for me." And they said, "Well, you should try out for Blue Devils." And so 5 of us did, and we all made it, and we had to drop out of school in January, drove out to Concord, and this was 1983, and we did that whole season together, and I was hooked ever since. I finished up my degree at East Texas State University and did, was a band director. First job was at Westfield High School, I was hired in August, and they said, "Yeah, get ready. We're going to be the first Texas band to go to Grand Nationals in November." And so that was my introduction to that whole scene, which was amazing. Great people involved. Philip Geiger, Bill Watson were the directors there. So I had excellent mentors. Eddie Green would come out frequently and work with us because we were right there in the area, and so I was absolutely immersed. I ended up moving out to California because no tornadoes out here. I'd been in two in Texas, actually in East Texas, yeah, during my childhood. No, and very low humidity and just beautiful, beautiful weather. I spent a 1 year at Merced High School and then was hired as a young whippersnapper to be the head director at Clovis High School. I opened, I mean, I was there for 3 years and then opened Buchanan High School, which was the third Clovis Unified High School. And I developed that 12 years. And I was doing show design with West, even back in the Westfield days, even at East Texas State University. And so that's kind of where all of this started to evolve. You had some great, Westfield won 3 state championships in a row, and we were second at Grand Nationals that first year.
Wow.
But it was, we won the music captions, and it was really an amazing experience. But anyway, as I was at Buchanan, I started to compose music for my own band. I was doing my arrangements anyway, and it's just like, why am I trying to put all these square pegs in these round holes? So I had studied composition in college, and so I just started messing around with that whole thing, and it blew up at that point, to the point where after 12 years I had to actually stop teaching because well, first of all, my son he was 3 years old, my daughter was on the way, and I wanted to be able to spend time with them, and just the composition side of things just got too intense for me to. I was doing 80-hour work weeks, as you can imagine, like pretty much every band director does, that's heavily involved with all the activities and just, the commitment to the program. And so I had to let that go, which was the toughest thing I ever did since I actually started the school. And now 21 years later, my kids are grown up. My son's a band director. My daughter's about to finish her student teaching to be an elementary teacher. And so I am now at Clovis North High School, where I've been helping with the band, for the past 17 years. But I'm at Clovis North as the orchestra director,
Hmm.
and it's a whole new world for us band guys.
Hmm.
And it's counterintuitive, but I'm absolutely loving it. So it's helping me grow as a composer. I'm now learning what I can and can't do with strings.
Hmm. And for anybody who puts your name into Google, they'll come across, your company and your website, Key Poulan
Yeah.
Music, where that's where I first heard about you many, many years ago, where you have, I didn't count the amount of shows. I don't know if you know offhand, but tons of shows, everything from full packages to pieces of things, right? And
Yeah.
it's a great service you do for people.
Yeah, there must be, in excess of 200, and there's a lot of shows that aren't even up on there at this point. Just trying to keep up with that. You can imagine just being, I'm a one-man show here,
Hmm.
kind of thing. And but it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, that company just kind of exploded. I think I was probably one of the ones that pioneered, composing exclusively for marching band at the time. Stephen Malillo had done some things like that. Obviously there were other composers that had done the same thing. But I just decided I wonder how it'll do in California. And I sent a big, a CD out to all the band programs in California. It exploded at that point. And I said, well, if it happens here and I did the same thing in Texas, I wonder what it's like for the whole nation. Boom. And then of course that's when it was like, be careful what you wish for. But it was really great. And, obviously a lot of people have gone down that road. And one of the things that pushed that whole idea was the fact that there were so many lawsuits happening against directors and arrangers. I think a lot of it was due to ignorance, not necessarily anything malicious. But I remember saying that, well, if that's the case, why don't I just compose, and then I can make sure that when I send things out, it's like they have the rights. They don't have to worry about anything legally. And I know that a lot of people were scared at that
Hmm.
time. No, no lawsuits, right? And so that was kind of one of the angles that I took. It's like, yeah, you can relax now. You have all the permissions you need.
Love that. What's some advice you might have for younger band directors who haven't designed many shows, maybe not designed of their own, but choosing shows? You know, I'm a band director and I've been teaching 3 years, and now I'm kind of in the position of having to choose a show for my school. What's some advice you might have for them?
Right. Well, what I like on my website, what I suggest people, first of all, you kind of have to know what kind of band they have. You know, you have your large band programs. I have three different levels that I try to steer people toward. So you have your large bands, which I orchestrate for. I do a reduced instrumentation for smaller bands, but the difficulty is still the same. And then I go into a simplified version, which is just basically a watered down version of the reduced, and that seems to work really well. So when people are going, well, okay, I have a developing band, the technique can't be too hard, and so I say, okay, well, let's go to the simplified version, and you'll see some of the shows that may have a large version as well. But I've adjusted it to where very playable, and a lot of the technique has been taken out, but you still get the overall feel of that. So what I suggest that people do is they just take a look at the titles, go through, look at the titles. If you can conjure up an image in your mind just just by reading a title, that's already a great start. And one of the things that I really wanted to discuss today was that a lot of us, when we go through our music ed classes, we're focused on the music side, which we should be. Where a lot of people struggle, it's that whole coordination with the visual. And so that's why I recommend just read the titles. If something pops in your head visually, I mean, it could just be any image, it could be anything. But if there's something that you can lock into, that's a good place to start. And so most of my titles, I try to do short titles. They aren't always
Mhm.
short, but Medusa, for instance, okay, you think snakes. All right, that's one that's very easy. Rise and Fall of Rome, which was the first one I ever did. Well, you think the Roman Colosseum, you think all things ancient, and there's a lot of things that can just pop into your mind. So those are good places to start. And so if there's some kind of a strong image that happens in your brain as you're just reading the list, then those are the ones to target. And then I say, take a listen, pop those open, maybe pick five or six that you like and pare it down to maybe your top three, and then think about how many images you could come up with, or even movement, just anything that is not necessarily the musical side, but what we're going to be doing visually and through movement, through color, through drill design, and all of that. And if that if that kind of locks in with you, and if you have a staff or other designers, I always say that's a really really good place to start because you already have the ball rolling in that global concept.
One thing that was hard for me, I'm in year 22 of teaching for the longest time. You're right. It's like music, music, music. This is we want to do this piece. We want to do this piece. Thinking visually first. It's literally I literally wrote think visually first, and as right as you're saying that. So for people who are trained band directors, we're maybe not don't have drum corps experience. Maybe we marching band, but we're not trained visual people beyond performing for the years we were in a marching band. Some
Right.
advice, some practical advice, maybe getting us to think more visually at the start of it rather than I want to do the Shostakovich, whatever, and then we'll figure out what the show is. What are some ways we can kind of turn that around?
Well, and that's the big takeaway, hopefully, from this particular interview is that, yeah, we grew up. Oh, yeah, I want to play this piece and that piece and that piece. Oh, how do we put them together? Oh, now, we have to think a visual concept, and you're lost that way. And that was kind of like the '90s and '80s way that we would put shows together. We just, oh yeah, oh that's a great tune. I've always wanted to play that, and it's like. We didn't think about just like the big umbrella that we want to work within. And I always say that that's the most important thing. So if you maybe there is a piece of music that you really want to do, if you have a staff, especially, I always like to lean on the color guard designer. I because I've they're the ones that really bring a lot of the character to the show in terms
Sure.
of visual, and I like to include them a lot. Uh, okay, so what do you see when you hear this piece of music? So that was kind of the previous way that we would do certain things, and very successful. I
Mhm.
mean, it definitely worked. I like to do the opposite. Let's come up with the big concept, and then let's figure out what we can plug in to make that concept come to life and give it some sense of organization, like a chronological line. What is the development through time, and what are some of the Shirley Whitcomb, who judged out here for many years and was involved in WGI education. She was very much into the whole, what are the planned effects? You need to have an overall arc of a show. Where are the planned effects? You need to work toward those, hit those effects, and then get out of them with smooth transitions and logical development. And you have to have different levels of effects.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of ways to lay out the overall timeline to where it works really well. And I was one of those guys that I would just like freely write. When I first started composing my song, my shows were, 10 minutes, and it was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's probably not the best thing, especially once we got into the time limits in Texas. So yeah, we had to really compress some of those things, and so you plan the effects that way, and that's a really great way to get the entire staff to be thinking globally. And that's my big push. Think visual, think globally, and then lay in the pieces that support that idea.
Mhm. So you use the word timeline, storyboard, same thing where you
Yeah,
basically, whether it's written out or on an Excel spreadsheet or whatever, right? Like designers want to see that. Staff should be saying, okay, how do we design this? How long is this production going to be? How short is this production going to be? What is the
right.
guard doing here? Like all those logistical things. Um, so is there a certain amount of these sort of big impact moments that you should have within a show, or is that kind of based on how long the show is?
Well, I've heard that, okay, every 30 seconds we need to have an effect. And it's like, well, it depends on what your show's about. It depends on what kind of effects that you want to have. For instance, I mean, there's kind of two ways to start a show: one that develops and then arrives at an impact, and one that's impactful right off the bat. Um, you know, taking a look at that, a lot of people do the developmental version. I do that a lot for sure because I want it to, have a little bit of interest and intrigue. But when you start to do that, you've already eaten up a lot of time just developing that arrival to that first impact point. And so you have to look at how you want to start, and I don't necessarily lay things out. Okay, we're going to do four movements and they're going to be this long each. I think a lot of it, certainly when I compose for groups, I I like to get information from the director, from the staff. Okay, what do you have an overall concept? Okay, what are some of the thoughts you have? Did you have any uh, visual moments? What were those effect points that you were thinking about visually? And then let's work to craft a logical progression. So maybe it takes a minute, maybe it takes
Mhm.
30 seconds, maybe it takes 2 minutes. There's a lot of different ways to do that, because you don't want to rush it. Especially, it's awful for drill designers when you don't give them enough transition time. Um, just it's like effect, 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 and there are people that are great at being able to do those uh, quick turnarounds with each impact point. During the planned effects, and then there's those that it's like, oh, now what am I going to do with the trombones out on the 20-yard line now?
Mhm.
So uh, the coordination element of design, to me, that's pretty much the most important part after you have like this global look at the show. It's like, how do we coordinate all of these elements to where they all speak with the right priority? Maybe this is a visual impact right here. It may or may not be a musical impact, but a lot of times it's usually the same amount of energy. But it's like, this is a color guard feature. We want to make sure that they're in the right place for that, and we have to plan and give them time to get to the focal point. whether it's up front or off to the side, it doesn't matter. But there has to be, again, that work with the whole design team. It's like, yeah, we're going to need a little bit of time to develop to this moment here. And so my job and I'm usually the first to go. It's like, okay, hey, we're going to do this show. Okay, so write the win book. And so I'll do that, and I have to think about percussion transitions and features and all of that, and leave space or sketch some of those things. And it's really important that you need to have that hive mind working at all times. So if you do have a staff or a design team, all of those people need to be heavily involved. And one of the toughest things that you have to deal with because we have winter guard and winter percussion and those various things, is getting people in the headspace
Mm.
about designing for the fall. Or like in drum corps, we start in October, November, and we continue to work right in the middle of marching band season. So it's trying to get everybody focused in at the same time. Zoom meetings have been fantastic for that, especially if they're scheduled and planned weekly or bi-weekly. That really helps that process.
I wish there was more education for people who wanted to design shows better, whether or not they're the writer or arranger or just a band director looking to come up with concepts and have somebody help them, because we go to school to conduct, we go to school for our trumpet, we go to school for all these things. And then it's like, help design shows. And you're like, I don't know how to do that,
And
and
that's
I,
such a major part, isn't it? It's like
yeah,
that's what the community sees. I mean, I always kid about this, that one of these days I'm going to write an article about the insanity of doing marching band, how we try to get people to march in time and play and memorize music and be performers, and to coordinate all of those elements. And by the way, you're going to be evaluated by the entire community on the first Friday football game
mm,
of the season.
mm,
That's insane.
yeah.
And that's why I really think band kids are some of the best in the world. They just embrace that, and they do a great job. And all of us directors, we're equally insane for loving to do that sort of a thing.
So as directors are trying to grow and learn how to do this, is it just, hey, watch a bunch of drum corps videos and watch a bunch of good marching bands and see what you like, and then start learning over years? Are there places people can like take courses in doing this? Those are some questions I have.
Yeah, I think the best. I mean, obviously, a lot of I think most music ed programs have a marching band techniques class, and it's like so. Yeah, like you're going to be able to get a whole lot of information on how to communicate with your color guard person to
Mm,
make to design and really think through it. Or if you don't have a color guard person, what do you do? It's all on you. And there's a lot of directors that's the responsibility. So you're like you're on an island there. Um, I always think it's great to watch the great marching bands, watch the great drum corps. Um, just to understand that there's a lot of coordination that works, and watch how each planned effect is set up. um so I think a lot of what I don't think you can really get that in the college classroom, just because it's like, oh, we're going to meet this many times and we've got to cover all of these things about budget and how you did. It's like you touch on it, which is great, so you get that initial stroke of the brush through those courses. I know what that Gary Hill was the one who taught my marching band techniques class, and he did the concept of the production sheet, and I use that to this very day, and that's how I like to organize just the whole show, because everybody has their role in how to fill out the production
mm,
sheet. If you have a large design team, and if you're a one-man show, you still need to consider all of those categories. And so I think that's really, really important. What I was going to mention, I mean, kind of like how I did my deep dive into becoming an arranger, is like when I would start arranging pieces, like, I'd do this Copeland piece. And just the fact that of the analysis that you would do looking at a piece of music and seeing how Copeland did it, and then realizing that, okay, now I have to do these certain things so it speaks on the field. Um, Same thing, with it, with all the great composers, Mahler, Tchaikovsky, uh, just any of those works, or the great concert band literature. I learned so much just by doing the deep dive, looking into the score, seeing how they got that sound. Shostakovich, I remember in 2005 when we did the Shostakovich 12, and seeing how he scored his low brass, that would never work outside.
Mm.
So yeah, it's amazing how much work I had to do to get it to where it would actually speak on the field. But because his low brass is scored really low, and it's great on stage, and it's one of those things that it sounds fantastic on stage, but it can't project outside with that same energy. And so I just did a deep dive into every score and every piece of music that we ever considered, and that's where I learned a lot about just about how everybody orchestrates. And I think that's important. You just kind of drive yourself to look at those things. Obviously, YouTube is a great place to do certain dives on all of that, and obviously we have great access because of the internet. When I started, that didn't exist,
Hmm.
or at least publicly. And so, yeah, all of my work, just getting actual physical scores and doing that deep dive myself.
So we're going to sprinkle in some questions that people had
Okay, sure.
who wanted me to ask. So a question from Ron, and we're not looking for a free show here. We're not looking for you to design Ron's show. I put in something, but a mock design session. So and I put in, let's make our concept the color blue. Say you
Okay.
teach at a blue school and you like want to use blue as your color. For that as a theme, for an example, what are some next steps you might take when designing a show?
Okay. I like the brainstorming session first. And so, what I suggest is, I mean, obviously, it's really easy to go on and just type in the word blue and see what comes up. And so, in doing that sort of a thing, I mean, if you're looking at blue as being like your overall concept, okay, so it's like, okay, it's pretty abstract. It's definitely wide open, and so the important thing would be to, well, okay, let's just spitball, throw anything out. It's like, okay, water, the sky. I'm just thinking nature right now.
Hmm.
Blue bonnets for
Hmm.
Texas, sapphires, blue eyes, blue whale, the Earth, the big blue marble. Uh, let's see, Uranus and Neptune. Those are blue planets. So there's a lot of things that immediately come to mind that way. In terms of feelings, obviously there's that melancholy, that sadness or depression. Those are things that hit me when we think about that sort of a thing.
It's funny
So
you talk about feelings because I think a lot of what young band directors do is they say, okay, I'm going to find three pieces that have the word blue in it,
yeah,
and there's my design. It's blue this and this blue and all blues, and there we go. It's a blue show. Put out some
right,
blue color guard flags. It's like, well, not as much. So I love think of all the things. We do the same thing in our staff meetings. It's like every idea is a good idea. We probably won't use
yes,
almost any of these, but just keep throwing them out. And before you know it, you're going to have something that's there. So it's like choosing music that makes you feel a certain way, depending on what you want from this blue show.
right, and that was one of the things that, as program coordinator, I would always say at our very first meeting, it's like, it's safe. There's no such thing as a bad idea. Let's just get it up there, because that one idea may not be what we're going for, but it could spark 1,000 other ideas, and that may end up being our best idea. And so I think that's really important when you're running any of those kind of meetings. It's like, yeah, just feel free to, don't sit there and go, well, this may be a stupid idea. No. There's no such thing as a stupid idea. Just throw it up there and let's see what happens. Because everything could be organic that way, in terms of just, oh, wow, that reminds me of this. Oh, yeah, oh, we could go that direction. And so I think that's really important. Yeah, when you talk about certain, like, pieces of music with the word blue in it, I think that's a really good way to start, because one of the things that I believe in, when you have that global concept, let's say it's just blue, like you said, well, what can we do visually to get the idea of blue across? What can we do with music, and what is an absolute overt way to do that? First thing I think is Rhapsody in Blue or the Blue Danube, in terms of classical. Julie Giroux's Big Blue Marble, her Symphony Number 6, I think. To Kelly's Blue Shades. One of the things, like for instance, one of the pieces that I'm thinking of, it's Sir Arthur Bliss. He did a color symphony, and his second movement is called Blue. And I think it's regarding sapphires and kind of there's just a lot of imagery that I think that I have to look that up. But when I think about that, that would be a way to introduce some new music. I call it new music. It's, I think, written around the 20s or whatever. But it would just be something that a lot of people don't know, but it's still it's really great. And I think like starting a show with that music could really help set up a whole production under the concept of blue. Obviously, more things, overt things would be like blues music. BB King's "The Thrill Is Gone." I think that's kind of one of the more recognizable blues chart out there.
Well, and even there's even some things that people I think don't think about. Like we are a red school. Like
okay.
Our uniform is full red. Just say it. Like I want to do a blue show, but I'm not going to change our red uniform. So you have the entire band proper being in drumline in red, and you're trying to do a show about blue.
Right.
It's like simple stuff like choose a red show or
Yeah.
change it, right? I mean, or do a red, white, and blue show where you're the red and there's a blue, and so it's like things like that I didn't even they're like seem obvious, but a lot of people don't think about it. They're like, oh, this is just our uniform. Yeah, but you're trying to make a blue show and you're all red.
Right. Yeah, there are certain boxes that you maybe have to work within.
Yeah.
I was thinking about, okay, so those kind of like legit music and then blues music, contemporary, and anything from Blue Man Group. They have some of those that I think it's called the Forge. It has those big PVC pipes that just really groove. That would be kind of cool. There's a piece Blue by Eiffel 65. There's parts of that could be incorporated in the show. It'd be as silly as the Bluey theme song. Yeah. But I mean, you can really draw from a lot of different places. So again, just spitballing and seeing what lands, and then pursuing each of those, and it could be you as an individual. Let's just get things up there. When I taught Cavaliers, Michael Gaines was in the color guard, and a really great friend, a highly respected drill designer for sure, and my favorite. And we've designed a few shows, but I remember we designed for the Caballeros, and I went up to his place here in San Francisco, and we were trying to come up with the whole idea. It was called Passage to the Pyramid, like the riddle of the Sphinx kind of a thing that we were doing. And he Googled riddle of the Sphinx, or I don't even remember what it was, but we started thinking about, okay, yeah, we could do the whole riddle of the Sphinx. It's on 4 legs and then 2 legs and 3 legs, just man through time. And we're going, okay, yeah, so let's utilize the elements like sand and water and the golden pyramid and things to that. And so he would just Google in there, boom, and whatever images came up, it was just like, boom, here's a brainstorm of images that we could start to conceptualize some ideas with. And utilizing, like I remember he was like, yeah, we've got to do this water thing. And so it's like you can see it in his drill. It's like it looks like a river at times, and just how we were just looking at things together, and it's like it sparked my musical composition, it sparked his visual idea, and we were able to construct this really cool show. It was a rough year for those guys, but it was still like conceptually, I thought the show was incredible, and also it gave us a color palette to work with as well. So I think out of obviously smart use of the internet can really help just solidify more ideas. And notice I keep going back to visual.
Hmm.
It's like because if you can get your music design team to be looking at images and getting that really ingrained as you do the design process, it really helps focus a lot of the writing, especially when it's like, okay, we've got these ideas, so yeah, this first production is going to be, about the earth, and we're going to do these various aspects, and so maybe it is the earth, and then we get into the ocean blues and all of that, and there's just a lot of ways to kind of lay the big movements out. And what you'll see in a lot of my compositions is that each movement has a pretty descriptive title. And so I take the really big concept, and then it's like, okay, what's a logical progression? We've got to figure out the storyboard, the overall timeline. What are we trying to say with each production? And then that's why I always push, okay, what's the title of the show? There are a lot of people that come up with the title as the last step, and to me that's completely counterintuitive of coordination. People are successful at doing that, so I'm not knocking it. It just, my brain doesn't quite work that way. I want to know that big picture down to movements, and then how do we work each movement to have the planned effects in each of those, to where that golden thread is still going from beginning to end. And so that's what I recommend, doing that sort of a thing. So global to movements, and then the planned effects within the movements, and then you start to layer in the style of music, the tempo, the overall pacing of what needs to happen. And so when I get into the compositional state, that's what I'm thinking of. A lot of people ask the question, so how do you get your ideas or whatever? Well, this is my process. Then what I do at that point, whatever that first movement is, I'm thinking I have a mini movie already playing in my head. Okay, so if it's something that's less abstract, like I did a show called Transparency, and it was very abstract. So it's not that I was, that was a whole different thought process. But a lot of times it's like, okay, we want to be saying this. It doesn't have to be super literal, but okay, this is the idea. We want something that builds up, it explodes, with a big impact, and then it's off to the races, and high energy, and we end. And so maybe there is a concept that I have that little mini movie playing in my head, and I'm thinking like a feature film, as opposed to like drill and color guard work. I don't think in those terms necessarily when I'm composing. However, I do think about those moments where it's like, okay, yeah, this has got to be like a huge color guard impact right here, and hopefully it's like it comes to like a solid diamond shape with brass in it. Some of these things are already kind of planned in terms of general ideas by the drill designer and by the color guard person. By having all of those, again, it's planned effects all the way through. And when we do that, I start to think about, okay, oh, at this moment here, okay, we're doing this water moment, and it's nice and serene, and then it's like turns into this hurricane, and so it develops, and it gets more intense. I did something like this last year in terms of helping someone program, and it's like, okay, so we want to see the members and the guard swirling together, and the whole thing comes to a big moment, and that's where the peak of that particular movement is. So that's a planned effect. It's the motion of the swirl into some kind of a locked form, and the delivery of the impact point. So those are the kind of things that I think about, whether I'm composing or arranging or looking for music to arrange. I think that that's important. Again, taking those larger concepts and then finding or composing music that works to support that concept.
I love the idea of typing in words that come to your mind on YouTube and just looking at, I mean, on Google and finding all the images. That's, I mean, we've done that. I think that's a great way to put that. So say a band director has a show now, whether they've designed it or
Okay.
they bought one from somewhere or whatever. I think time management is something that a lot of us, we all need to work on, right? So,
Well,
um,
you have too many things that you're trying to accomplish in one year,
yeah,
and there's never enough time.
yeah. So, so some advice about, planning out a marching band rehearsal
Okay.
in advance. Say you've got a 2 hour rehearsal.
Okay.
Um, how, like, do you find that the successful programs have ahead of time programmed? We're doing 10 minutes of this and 5 minutes of this and 12 minutes of this and then 6 minutes of this, or is it like, we're going to get to the opener today. Let's see how it goes.
Well, yeah, the top programs have it absolutely laid out like that. I try to find kind of in between. It's like these are the major concepts that I want to get done today. You never have real control over, what, the response time of the group is going to be.
Mm,
And to me, it's more important than one of the things I do like scheduling out the time. I think that's fantastic. It takes a lot of discipline, um, but there is always the time where it's like, well, that's all the time we have for that. We got to move on. And I'm the person that I'd rather slow things down and work for perfection when they're learning. So we don't have all of these errors. Oh wow, we got 20 pages of drill done today. Okay, well, how much of it is good? I would rather have 4 pages where they know their pathway. We've worked out the step size, we've worked the angle of the body. We know, because we've had to change dynamics because of where they are on the field. It's one thing to play in an arc. Wow, that sounds great. You put it on the field, and it's like the balance is all out of whack. And so, to me, it's more important to take smaller chunks. I always say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
mm,
And so being, making sure that those bites are worked to perfection to where they're not creating bad habits, off the bat. It's like, oh, we'll get to the dynamics later. We'll get to the articulations later. Yeah, that's kind of a recipe for disaster. I think it's very important that you are prepared, with how you want to perform, and the expectation of clarity of articulation. It only takes one person to muddy up the water, and so that advanced time is important. Now, the more the more that you set up the students for success, like this is how we do this. A lot of times when I see, um, it's like, okay, we're going to go from set 3 to set 4, and then you have kids that hit their dots, 4 counts early and mark time, but there's never been an explanation on how you work the pacing. It's a 16 count move, so where are you on count 8? You check it out. Okay, now find out where you are on count 4. Just kind of visualize that to where you develop that step size and you work consistent step size. For instance, in that particular kind of drill, it's the consistency of step size. Take an angle, take the step size. If you overshoot your mark, you know that you were too big, but don't cheat the last steps just to hit the dot. And so there's that pre-training on how to do that. And then when you see issues with the drill, for instance, it's like, okay, so and so is taking way too big of steps. Oh, and look, they cheated the last 4 steps there. So, they're fun. Okay, the form is good at the beginning, the form's great at the end, but the transition all the way through is not there. So you have to train the students on how to do things, and then you can start to gauge those. Okay, yeah, we're going to spend 10 minutes on this chunk of drill. We've got 20 minutes that we need to do some balance work with. Well, let's do the on-field timing between the battery and the winds. Okay, and then let's layer in the pit's going to come in later. Let's layer that in, and we need to make sure that we have 5 minutes to balance these 2 phrases with the front ensemble. Oh, way too much electronics. It's like it's not balanced this way. We did all that work on the field, and then it's like the front ensemble just, obliterates it, or it's not enough. And so to me, thinking ahead of how, obviously, what is the goal of that rehearsal, and that does take a lot of preparation, which band directors don't have. They don't have the time in a lot of ways. So it takes a lot of discipline. And then obviously when you have the flow and the process, it becomes easier and easier. And but when I was at Westfield, Bill Watson was in charge of laying out that timeline. And these are our goals. This is when we're doing it. And it's like, hey, we're ahead of schedule, we're behind schedule. But then again, the students were trained. I mean, they could play, and they were incredible. So a lot of it was working out the visual aspect, and he would plan it seemed like I would say we were successful 95% of the time because he had the experience of how long things took with this particular group of students. And yeah, so I learned that from him. He did a great job of that.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's big about time management is planning ahead. I remember you mentioned having, kids when you were younger and all that. When my wife and I are the band directors here in town, and when we had our first child, was one of these like, well, one of us is going to be out when she's sick. So let's plan even further ahead, just in case something were to happen, you had to miss time, then you're going to be fine. So yeah, like it's hard on Sunday morning to plan the Thursday rehearsal. But
Yeah.
when you can get it done, it's going to be easier than planning it on Thursday afternoon, when you're in the middle of doing all the things. So,
And of course, inevitably, things change between, then and Thursday. It's like, oh, hey, they got that chunk, but oh, I had no idea they couldn't pull this off. And
mhm.
so, yeah, there always has to be the molding of the clay throughout the week as well.
So we have some more member questions that I wanted to kind of
Okay.
throw your way, and feel free to answer them as in depth or not as you'd like, whatever comes to you. In no particular order. Dirk asks, how hard is it to stay creative when you're designing multiple shows per year?
Um, Hyper focus. That's one of the things that I didn't, apparently that's one of the big time markers for ADD, which I didn't know. Always thought, I must have a little ADD or whatever, but I can hyper focus, and it's like the rest of the world is out. I don't even know what's going on. My mom used to say, yeah, when you watch TV, it doesn't matter what we say, you don't even hear us. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm focused on what I'm trying to listen to. I do the same thing in terms of when I'm working on any project. A lot of, again, I'm usually the first one to take the steps. And so we've already had like the discussions about what the show's about. So when I start to, let's just say I'm composing, when that happens, I'm running that particular film in my head. Whatever the planned effect is, that's going in my head, and it may be an imaginary scene from a movie that you know that I have running through. Again, it's rarely okay. Here it is in marching band or drum corps form. It does go to that at times. Uh, so I kind of ping pong between both of those. But if I can just get the overall feel of it and know that, I've got to get to this impact point pretty quickly. So how do we get there? Um, and by having that, I'm just completely hyper focused on that project. And then, I pull it, oh, I need to be doing this one. Okay, marching. Oh, this is a completely different thing. To me, that's what it's not a problem being able to shift between one and another. In fact, I think that's what keeps me sane.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I was on the same idea over and over and over and over, that yeah, that would probably be more difficult.
Okay.
So it is refreshing to step out and just okay, now I'm working on this ballad. It's completely different than the frantic opener that I just finished. And oh, okay, and this is more classically uh, maybe it's Beethoven or whatever, and it's like, okay, oh yeah, let's listen to the Beethoven, uh, either the source material or something that maybe it's supposed to kind of be like, inspired by. Um, and that right there is a good rest for the brain and just the transition. Obviously, it's important to, get away from the computer, but I'm kind of one of those workaholic types where Next thing I know, it's 4 a.m. and I'm still sitting at the computer. Can't do that these days,
Yeah.
being the orchestra director. So I'm even more disciplined now.
So a question from Taylor. Taylor's actually a band director out in California, but it's a
Okay.
big state, so you probably don't know him.
Taylor
Behind this,
who?
Taylor Smith, I think is his last name.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Behind the scenes of staging and design, where to start and how to organize ideas. I mean, I think we kind of hit a lot of that stuff
Yeah,
already.
the production sheet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't say that enough. But again, global to the minutia, but laying out a production sheet, especially after the music has been written. I think it's really important that you break down the phrases. I always, when I write, I always put double bars where I see the drill phrases. So it's like, you know, yeah, like every 4 bars, you'll see a double bar or, whatever it happens to be, the major moments. And then you lay that out in terms of the timeline. So the production sheet, again, to me, it's more for the visual side, but it's also a really great way to help everybody see the larger picture. So for those of us that are kind of living in the musical side, we can see what the color guard and what the drill is supposed to be presenting. And so I think that's really important. Um, to me, the drill designer has the toughest job of all.
Mm.
Okay, because everybody wants. I remember seeing a George Zingale clinic back in the day where it's like, oh, the brass players, they all want to be right here because it's a big brass moment. Oh, and the drums, they want to be right here, and the guard wants to be right. It's like everybody wanted to be in the
Mm.
same thing. So he had to prioritize how to make certain things work and which is the most important. So like on my production sheets, I always have like, what is the melodic, who has the melody, and then who has this, the remainder, the accompaniment part, in terms of winds, or it could be brass to brass or whatever. Um, Flutes have the melody here, okay, and everybody else, no one's performing, so there is no wind accompaniment, or maybe there is with low brass, but we can't upstage the flutes. So I always have that primary voice and then the accompaniment voice, and I also have the percussion people, the battery. It's like, okay, oh, the snares are supporting this melody, okay, so if there's moments where it's like, okay, we need to kind of get them in close proximity. It's all for geographics and presentation of voice because that's the important thing. Jay Murphy is great at doing that, presenting the right voice. Jay Murphy of Blue Devils, and so that at least lays the structure out. And I know a lot of drill designers, they typically are band directors or come from a musical side, and so that's really important. And you can tell the ones that are like, oh, we got to have the guard, so let's just frame everything with the guard. The guard is an afterthought on a lot of times, and you can see that with a lot of younger drill designers. And so that's why it's really important to have the color guard person in there. It's like, okay, we're going to have a rifle feature right here, and that's going to be with the snares and the trumpets. Okay, so that's a big moment, and we have to make sure those are together. So, oh, you're not on rifle there. So what I would do on the production sheet is back it up. It's like, okay, there has to be a transition to get the flags onto rifle and to get the rifle staged with them without it looking, oh, here they are, they're going off. And here they come this way. And this is where Michael Gaines is brilliant. He does this way that he can layer things in and out. And the transitions are so smooth and perfect. And it's like, it's an effect on its own just by the way that transition works. And so by doing that, there's the entirety of what needs to happen with the design. And that's why I think the drill designer has the toughest job, because they have to prioritize based on that information what works, and they're bringing their creative aspects into it. So it's not like everybody's dictating to the drill designer. The drill designer has already been part of that process of like, hey, we're going to swirl this moment in and it's going to lock, and so I'd like to do that right there. But there's a lot of times it's like, okay, they want this, they want that, they want that, they want that. Now, in order for me to get that to happen, and I need to be creative in how to do that.
Hmm.
That's why they get paid the big bucks.
one of the things that I've learned, and I appreciate your time very much today, Key, that we do in our staff, and I know a lot of other staffs do, and I just want to put out there is at the end of the season, when you get together with your end of the season staff meeting, go over what are things that we want to do differently next year? What are the things we want to do better next year right now? Not waiting until next June to talk about it. Let's talk about it right now, because we forget, we change seasons. So if people don't do that, I hope that they start doing it.
Yeah, and that's really important. And the problem is, like everything else, it's like, oh, okay, we finished marching season. Oh, we've got winter drums. We've got, winter drums, winter guard. We have all of our ensembles now, jazz band kicking off. And it's like, I always, the teachers on campus all over the years, oh, now that marching season's over, it's got to be a lot easier on you. And it's like, well, at least we had one giant project that we were working on that took a lot of time. Now we've got 10.
Yes. Yes. Key, thank you very much for your time. Just
Sure.
An out of the box question. The name of a band director or a program in your area that you'd like to shout out who does a great job?
Well, I work at Clovis North with David Lesser, Jose Vargas, David Gaberson, Sean Glide, John Ravelo. We have a pretty cool team there, and we've been pretty successful. I do not compose or arrange the music. Dave Glide, who's Sean's brother, who does it for Blue Devils. Sean and Dave get together, and then I help reorchestrate for that. But it's a really great group. There's a lot of, all the Clovis schools are really solid. Very impressed with all the work that everyone does here. High standards. Obviously, there's Logan up in the north. They're super solid. Homestead High School up there, and then of course Chino Hills, Ayala. Some of the big powerhouses down there, and that's kind of in the Western Band Conference that we have, the WBA conference. There's a lot of really solid bands out here, pretty great bands, but it's a little more fragmented than like a UIL system in Texas or one that BOA focused. Yeah, all of those people I'm always impressed with out here.
Key, if people want to reach out to you, what's the easiest way for them to do that?
KeyPoulanmusic.com. So that's KeyPoulan music.com. And you can just easy to get me there. I'm Key at KeyPoulanmusic.com.
Beautiful.
And I do a pretty good job of responding to everyone. Even, students are always impressed that I respond to them. I try my best now that I'm an orchestra director and I have 191 string students at the moment. That's becoming pretty involved. So always try to get to those responses as quickly as I can.
Beautiful. Keith, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. Hopefully someone was able to glean a little bit of something from me. And we're all learning. We're constantly learning. And so that would be my biggest takeaway. Learn from everyone you can.
We sincerely appreciate you taking your valuable time and listening to the Growing Band Director podcast. Your students are very lucky to have a band director like you. If you have any suggestions for episode topics or think you have an area of expertise to share on a show with us, please reach out. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your band director friends to subscribe as well. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, our YouTube channel, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening to The Growing Band Director. See you next week.